If you've been building your business solo and secretly wondering if you're doing it all wrong, then I want to invite you into something that might just change the game. It's called the Freedom Business Circle, a newly developed group coaching that I run with my business and life partner, Badr Lakshiri, who's also a transformational realignment coach with nearly 2 decades of experience. This coaching group is not another course or mastermind. It's a high impact coaching space for creators, coaches, and online business builders who are ready to grow their income and their freedom at the same time. Inside, we focus on aligned growth. No hacks, no burnout. We want to make sure that you're growing your business in a way that feels in alignment with your purpose. We do so with 2 powerful coaching calls a month, once a week asynchronous coaching inside our 24/7 available Slack community where Badr and I jump in every single week for an entire day to answer your questions, and you will gain access to curated Slack community that actually gives a damn. See, whether you're hovering around your first few clients, have spent the last 6 months perfecting your offer or content strategy without putting anything out there, or are finally ready to hit 2 to 5K months consistently, this space gives you structure, feedback, and the community to make it happen without selling your soul or having to duct tape your business together from freebies. Because here's the thing. The Freedom Business Circle lives right in between the $20,000 a year mastermind and a free Facebook group that you've already muted. The circle is open now, and for only $97 a month for the first 10 members and $147 a month after, you can plug in immediately. I mean today, and you can cancel at any time. So head to the link in the show notes to learn more and claim your seat inside the Freedom Business Circle today. All right, let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Your Business Untethered podcast, a space for freedom seekers ready to build and scale a business that supports their wildest dreams, even while traveling the world. Hi, I'm Dina, creator of Way of the Founder and your host. I imagine this podcast as a space where aspiring and established freedom entrepreneurs come to forge a path towards purpose, financial freedom, meaningful impact, and location independence. I'll be your guide as we defy the norm, heal old conditioning, and step into the leaders we were born to be. I myself am a firstborn, a daughter of divorcee, sister, girlfriend, professional coach, nomad, and expat of a decade plus, as well as yoga aficionado and energy healer. In my previous career, however, I worked a 9-to-5 as a professional fundraiser for American orchestras. Can you believe it? However, I needed more. I needed more freedom in my life. So 5 years ago, I called quits on resume success and claimed back the reins over my own life. What started with a one-way ticket to Vietnam and a single backpack filled to the brim has since grown into Way of the Founder, where I've helped hundreds of clients defy and heal from the past that were told to follow, redefine freedom, fulfillment, and success on their own terms, and build impact-driven businesses that let them live and work from anywhere. Join me each week for deep dives into leadership, strategy, and mindset, as well as the healing that fuel the untethered CEO. That's you. Whether you're building your dream with a coconut flight ticket, wine glass, or coffee in hand, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to Your Business Untethered. I'm really, really excited for today's conversation. I have the absolute privilege of bringing you Kai, who is an inner child coach, a fellow digital nomad, and someone who was on a very traditional path for a really long time until one day he had this famous, oh shit moment, woke up from a dream and began to completely rebuild his life into a very unconventional, very healing, very important, powerful, important to the world direction. And I'm just so excited to have you, Kai. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Dina, for that warm welcome and intro. I'm also very excited to be here and chat with you today.
So I had prepared this whole introduction, but then as life goes, that just didn't feel right to read off the page right now. So instead of me reading a clinical sentence off the page, I'd love for you to just sort of take it away, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do what you do?
Yeah, thanks. Dina kind of introed, I was kind of following down this traditional path, becoming a doctor. I'm second generation Chinese Canadian, born in Canada. And I was going down this path. I think inside I knew like healing people. That's what drove me. I just wasn't aware what I want, like what are my core values, but also like, having the clarity of what also my family wants and what they see as success for family, for, you know, being the oldest son. So I went down this route and didn't like it. Kind of was the hardest thing I've ever done. That kind of broke me down to kind of wake me up. And now I work with inner child healing work. I really focus on the intersection of emotional intelligence, like communication, family systems, and healing. And for that, I show up as like a teacher, as a coach. I create a lot of educational content on my social media channels, and I'm most passionate about working in community with my students and working very closely one-on-one with more kind of professional clientele. A lot of similar kind of second generational immigrants in like professions, like whether it's like healthcare, like I work with a lot of doctors, nurses, or in other professions like law, academics, but a very kind of similar story where they're kind of successful on the outside, but internally, when it comes to relationship with themselves, emotionally, psychologically, there's a lot of kind of like distress, turmoil, maybe a lack of alignment that it's not coherent with maybe how people see them on the outside.
Yeah. I mean, this right there just brings up so many questions, thoughts, ideas, and memories as well, right?
Mm.
I mean, who didn't have this moment of, wait a minute, my life looks sort of picture perfect on the outside. Everyone keeps telling me I'm so successful and that I live the dream life and that I have the dream job and that I'm set up for success in the long term. And meanwhile, none of that resonates on the inside. All of that just sort of makes me feel more miserable because it goes to show that I am somehow, based on society, supposed to be happy, supposed to feel fulfilled, supposed
Mm.
to feel as though I have it all, but I don't feel that way. What is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And that's when many of us, seek out coaches, begin to go down inner healing journeys, just, go on that inner journey of exploring and finding yourself again in the first place. So I'm curious, Kai, if you would take us back to that moment when you realized that the path you were on wasn't the path you wanted to stay on. What
Oh,
was that moment like? The inner turmoil, the conversations, internal, external, and what was it that eventually gave you the courage to make the leap into entrepreneurship?
yeah, that's a great question. I would say for my journey, there were like, yes, like very almost like significant moments. I could say that that was like a canon event. But also, I think, I guess for me too, is it was an ongoing journey that I had these canon events that really shut things up, but still I wasn't sure. So that kind of keep going down a path that wasn't for me. So I would say that like a canon event was third year medical school. So the first 2 years, I mean, it's all hard, but the first 2 years, you're kind of more protected. Like classroom, there's some like simulation stuff. You might do a bit of shadowing, but then the third year, like you're just thrown into the hospital system and you're kind of like working full time and also studying and writing really hard exams. So you get to, at least in my school, you get to pick, like, you get to do all the core rotations like surgery, psychiatry, family medicine, but you get to pick which order. So like there's a lot of strategies in this. So my strategy was I'm going to do the thing that I know I'm going to dread the most first. So then once I get that out of the way, everything else is going to be easier. So for me, like I just knew surgery, like I disdain surgery, so I'll do it first. So I barely survived that first week of surgery. Like I was so anxious. I didn't realize back then I was in a constant fight or flight mode. And it was like pretty inhumane hours. You have to show up at the hospital at 6 a.m. You're working the whole day. Like literally, it's like I had no experience working in the hospital, a lot of insecurities. So imagine, right? You're working in the hospital, right? And you go to the OR, you see patients. It was very overwhelming for me. So I barely survived through the first week. And also, like, I was so stressed out. And my pattern back then, instead of taking better care of myself when I'm under that stress, I did the opposite. I would feel bad, neglect myself even more, stop doing all the things of taking care of myself. So no yoga, right? No times with friends, eating a lot of like I was binge eating rice chips, drinking like 5 coffees a day. And of course, all this together had very poor sleep. So literally it was that Sunday. I had like the worst case of the Sunday blues because you know what comes after Sunday? It is Monday, and you have a full 5, 6 days of it all repeating itself. So I lost hope. I didn't know I was burnt out. So I couldn't study that Sunday. And then I kind of spent 3 hours like Googling stuff, like bankruptcy, Googling like any other medical students that had to take time off or drop out. And you couldn't find anything. So literally I felt so alone. I felt so ashamed, and I felt like this was the end. So I had a breakdown. Like literally, like my brain just like stopped working. It was this eerie, numb, disassociative experience where at least I didn't feel so bad about myself anymore, but I just felt numb. So like something in me just like took over, maybe my body. Like I kind of closed my anatomy up book, closed my big anatomy book, shut down my tablet, shut down my laptop, and then I just started walking. Like my body just took me outside. And I did 3 laps around the neighborhood. Like the first lap, I had to check in. I never felt so low and so numb. So I had to check in if I was suicidal. So thankfully I wasn't. I didn't have a plan. I didn't want to die, but I had to check in. And then the second lap, it was kind of beautiful and sad. Second lap, it was like me talking to myself, like, this is the lowest I've ever felt. This is not okay. Like, what do I need to do to start taking care of myself? And if I don't want to die, it was a breakthrough because up until then, I would rather die trying to become a doctor. But during that breakdown, I realized that hell no, like I will take a break from school. I will even drop out. Like I will figure out a way. Because what made me feel trapped was the debt. Like at the point, I was already like 100K in Canadian dollars in debt. So for me, I had no other path other than completing being a doctor. And then as a doctor, make the money and then quit later on. So anyways, I was kind of talking to myself, we'll take a break if we need to. That was so freeing, but also still so scary. And then the second question I never asked myself before was, what do I want in this life? Like not what my parents want, not what I think they want from me, not what school wants, not what society wants. Like, what do I truly want in this life? And I didn't really know, but I started asking that question. So anyways, fast forward like a couple months later, I decided to take a break. I spent 6 months, like fully dropped out. Like I was so burnt out. I didn't see myself being able to do it. So after 6 months, I took the time off. I was much better. I started doing this inner child healing work. And for me, what got me to go back, I always had this burning question that what if I was supposed to be a doctor? It was going to be a very fulfilling, meaningful path forward, but I had a lot of mental illness. I had a lot of anxiety, insecurity, and childhood trauma. So if I were to fix this, if I were to heal this, I would have loved to work as a doctor. So anyways, I went back, finished medical school, and literally like my last year, I was about to submit my papers to be a psychiatrist for 5 more years of training. So literally, I still wasn't sure yet until that moment. I listened to that inner voice that was like, hell no, we are not going to commit and submit 5 years. Let's take 1 year off. So there were moments, like big moments, but also I had to keep going through this journey for me to arrive at these fork in the roads. So why I share that? Like sometimes people think it's just one event that happens and that's it. Yes, it's true. Sometimes it is a one event, but sometimes it's a continuing of big events, small events, but you have to keep going on the path for you to find out and for you to experience these breakthroughs.
And not just keep going on the path. I would add to that, you have to develop the courage and the self love to listen to yourself, right?
Yeah.
You share it. Like I had to listen to my body. My body was taking me outside. I had to get into a conversation with myself. There
Mhm.
was this voice that was telling me, hold off a moment. Let's take a year off before we submit our papers, right?
Yeah.
And that voice, to your point about the question you had to ask yourself, what do I want? Not what does society want? Not what do my parents want? What do I want? That's a question we're discouraged from answering growing up in most societies, right? We're encouraged to answer the question, what will make me successful? But we're not encouraged to ask the question, what does success feel like?
Yeah.
And so by the time we arrive at what success supposedly looks like, more often than not, we have the sense of, wait a minute, that feels weird. Why does this feel weird? Right? So I
Yeah.
imagine that as a coach, you help people develop the courage and the ear to listen to their inner voice quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Absolutely. Like literally
Talk me
step
through
through.
that.
Yeah. So I take my students through their inner journey.
Mhm.
And I take them through 4 steps. It's my 4-step butterfly transformation method. And really, it's like what I unknowingly, last 10 years, like went through these 4 steps myself. So, of course, with this inner work, like we label it linear, but really it's not linear. But first step is just like educating my clients and students about boundaries and really helping them develop a relationship with themselves. And really, it's the understanding and the skill of boundaries. That's really how we begin to define who am I? Who am I not? What are my values? Because really, that's what really boundaries means. It's like if you don't define this, you don't start listening to yourself and you listen to other people, like other people, the world is going to define who you are. So the very first step is boundaries, knowing about themselves. And I really help them like the daily practice. They learn how to practice mindfulness, meditation. So really being able to shut off the distractions, to be able to develop, it takes a lot of courage to
Mm.
close one's eyes, to go inside and to sit with oneself. But right, that is, I find that's the most deepest direct route to connecting with yourself. Like, right? Like it's no different. How do you connect with another human being? Focusing, sitting, listening. So same. Like how do we connect with ourselves? We close down. Well, if you can do, I guess you can do mirror work where you're looking at yourself with eyes open. So whether eyes are closed or like a soft gaze and you go inside, you are in communion with oneself, one's stuff. So that's one way in a daily practice, the mindfulness practice. And then the other practice is metta. It's loving kindness. So my students begin to grow the self love and the self kindness. Because the inner work can bring up a lot of stuff that if you just have the insight and the awareness, that doesn't also match with the self love, the acceptance, and the kindness, you can kind of use what you find about yourself, like the patterns, right, against yourself. So my students also every day practice loving kindness. And the way that this practice is done, you bring to mind a loved one, whether it's someone that you know, a family member, quite often like pets, like animals, whether
Mm.
they're alive or not, animals, like especially dogs, they're such a source of loving kindness, unconditional. So with this loved one in mind, you offer yourself loving phrases like, may I be loved, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be cared for. So whatever loving and kind phrases. So my students become developing this awareness, this calm, this connection, developing the self-love, the self-kindness, understanding boundaries, and also understanding basic things about themselves. Like, what are my needs? Like, what are needs? Like some of my students, like, they don't know what are needs, let alone what do they need. They start like kind of asking themselves those questions. Like, what do I want? What do I not want? Like, what are my expectations? Like, what is my purpose? What are my values? So they really begin doing this inner self exploration. So that's kind of the first step I take them through.
Wonderful. Yeah, we have to develop this muscle. Well, I think when I work with my clients, because what I always say is inner work is the secret business strategy,
That.
right? We're all out there looking for the best way to grow our podcast, for the right way to grow our Instagram audience. How do you launch? All important questions we need to answer. But if you launch a course or an offer from a place of people pleasing, it's going to land differently versus if you launch a course from a place of, I love myself. And no matter how this course does and who does or doesn't buy it, I will still love myself. The launch is going to carry a different energy. And as you approach the launch differently, the results will be different.
Mhm.
Likely if you carry out a launch from a place of loving yourself and knowing that no matter the result of the launch, your self-worth will be unimpacted, likely
Mm,
the result's going to be better, right? Because people don't want to buy from people who are in scarcity. And it happens on the subconscious level, right? Circling back to something that you said, right? You sort of help people to develop this muscle of beginning to listen to oneself. And you said something else I want to touch on as well, and that is courage. I can't
mm,
remember if you said it verbatim or if it was just implied, right? But it takes courage to sit, get quiet, and listen to yourself.
mhm.
Why is that?
Why does, yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Oh, before we dive into why it takes courage to be with oneself, let's talk a bit about courage. Like for me,
Mm,
right? Like my coach a long time ago, he was a business coach, and he kind of gave me these like 4 C's of, I guess, like confidence. And I do find like confidence and courage, they kind of like work together, but also this like maybe more Buddhist take of being fearless. So being fearless or confident, it's not the it's not the absence of fear or anxiety. It's actually in spite of my fear and my anxiety, the uncertainty, I'm willing to face it. I'm willing to look clearly or to move forward to where I want to go, who I want to become. So he was like, for you to become confident, you first just need the courage to try new things, to make
mm,
mistakes, to look stupid, right? To be
mhm,
judged.
mm,
So starting with that, and then, right, the consistency of showing up, and then you'll become more competent, and then, the confidence will come. So starting off, right, is just to have the courage to show up. And then the whole fearless thing, right? It's in spite of my fear, I'm still willing to move forward. Am I right? But don't do it alone. Like, right? Courage grows in community with a team to go with you. So kind of circling back to the question, why does it take courage for us to connect with ourselves, to go inside? I think it takes a lot of courage because I see it the same thing as in like the boogeyman. If you're not familiar with the boogeyman, it's like a myth where it's just like, boogeyman is like underneath your bed, right? It's like it's underneath your bed. So I know there's like a horror movie that's really bad that was with the boogeyman, but right, like imagine like a daughter or like a son, small daughter, small son, they're terrified of the boogeyman under the bed. So they get mom or get dad, like, mom, dad, I can't sleep. There's a boogeyman, right? So the son and the daughter by themselves, they're very scared to look, right? So with the help of dad or mom or whoever together, they go down on their hands and their knees, right? They lift the bed sheet, they look down, there's nothing there. So I think it's like just like the anxiety, like the same thing with going inside. Like it's not something that we do often. There's all this fear, whatever our fears are, like whatever our fears are, that really stops us from closing our eyes, going down our hands and our knees, right? And taking a look inside, like whether you want to call it like the shadow or your unconscious, or taking a look at the thoughts that are there. Like whether or not you develop a practice to introspect, to become aware, whether or not you do this work, it's been there all along, right? Like whether the boogeyman or the dust bunnies or whatever's underneath your bed, like whether or not you look, whatever is there has always been there, will always be there. So wouldn't you rather just to like take a look? So once and for all, you kind of know and know more.
absolutely. I mean, it's easier said than done to just go and take a look under the bed sheets, right?
Mm,
And you explained it so beautiful. One of the reasons why it's kind of tough for us to develop this muscle in the first place is because we're afraid. We're afraid of fear itself. We're afraid of whatever our fantasies have junctured up might be down there, right? There's a sense of what if I don't survive, right? What if I have to let go of certain feelings? Because the minute we start looking at ourselves, the minute we start looking at patterns, at people pleasing, at our relationship to our parents, I believe that the thing that we are subconsciously afraid of, that oftentimes when we start to begin this work at first we can't verbalize, is having to let go of a piece of our identity, right? Like for me, when I started doing this work at, thankfully quite a young age, around 19, I was beginning to dive really deep into my relationship to my parents and was beginning to recognize how that was playing out and affecting how I was living my life as a young adult. And the more I did the work, the more I had to almost grieve a part of myself that was just sort of naturally detaching itself. And that part was the part that thought of my dad as a villain and my mom as an angel. The
Mm,
part that always thought of herself as being this collateral damage of her parents' divorce. The part of me that, pitied herself for not having a dad who was available throughout her childhood. The more
mm,
I did the work of healing these wounds, the less I was pitying myself. So that part went away. The less
mm.
I thought of, villain and angel in my stories, so that a part of my entire narrative had to be rewritten. So you stop and think and go, oh shit, who am I now? And you sort of have to rewrite your story. And that's a terrifying prospect, but a rewarding action.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful what you shared. Yeah. And I think it's really stepping into our power because
Mm,
really, and I think it's hard for us to maybe want to do this introspective work, especially beginning on, is that like you described, whether it's like grief that you have to encounter, really big emotion that maybe your nervous system, maybe your strategies, your tools, like it might be too much for you to handle. And also, right, you have to come to terms where, because why that the self love piece is so important for anyone to start this introspective work is very easy with what you encounter. It throws you into like a guilt spiral or a toxic shame spiral, or it's like a lot of immense anger, injustice. So, right, I think at the end of the day, it's like doing this inner work, it puts you face to face with a lot of big emotions and kind of coming to terms with the story but also like you said, right, it's it's a it's scary for you to like now with you taking the pen, you're the author now, you're the director now. That comes with responsibility, right? There's no one else you can maybe blame or shame, but you also have the power to what kind of story you want to write and how would you want to retell your story. You also have that full power, the ownership, because also being accountable, it's not always like you're accountable to like the negative things, but you're also accountable to the positive results, the
yeah.
positive outcomes of you taking on this powerful role now.
Absolutely. So speaking of outcomes, we're talking about doing the work itself. And oftentimes we have to start doing that work just for the sake of doing the work. But then on the other side of doing the work, life begins to look a little differently. Now, you don't necessarily coach on business or on career. You coach on the inner child and sort of rewiring one's emotional DNA. But
Mhm.
I am curious to see from your standpoint as a coach, how does this work affect your client's career, money,
Yeah,
business, income, relationships? Like, let's
yeah,
talk about the good stuff that this work can do for real life.
yeah. So I'll share with you like two of my one-on-one clients that comes to mind. One, she was like kind of mid-30s. She's like born in Taiwan. Her family immigrated to New Zealand, and she was a burnt out physician. So she came to work with me like once she went through burnout recovery and she went back to her community hospital. That's when we kind of started working together. It was more so like burnout prevention. And so that was one client. The other client, she's an architect, immigrant. She was getting her green card or becoming a resident in the States. She was living in New York, was working in like a toxic work culture architect firm for 3 years. And she was like kind of getting burnt out, like questioning, like, should I leave? Like, which should I stay? So interesting is like they too came to do this work. It wasn't directly about their profession, but they both got positive impact on their career, how they showed up. So with the doctor, the outcome was that she was better able to show up in her job. She was better able to like, there's one colleague that had a bad habit of handing off complex client cases to other doctors. So the past, not my poor client. In the past, my client wouldn't have the ability to say no, so take it on. So now, like there was a moment where she was able to firmly, like, not take on this patient until this other doctor did these other things. So of course, the other doctor like got upset, reacted, like had a little meltdown. In the past, my doctor client would have felt bad, would have like bent over backwards. So she was able to just like stand there as this colleague like had a meltdown. She like left. And the beautiful part was, of course, like some guilty feelings showed up for her. Like, we worked it through. And the beautiful part was like a week later, this colleague like approached her like one-on-one, like during like a break, apologized. And their relationship actually got better. Another beautiful benefit was that like my client, really quirky, nerdy, and she was able to show this part in her job. Because in the past, she had all these blocks. Like people might judge her, this is not professional. So for her, she was able to share book recommendations to colleagues, and she was able to wear silly socks to work. That she would get a lot of positive compliments. So for her,
Wow.
it was more freeing. Like she had, like her job didn't like suck the soul out of her anymore. It actually, she was able to bridge the gap of her personal self, her authentic self, with her professional life. So her career didn't change. She was able to enjoy her job more, show up more powerful, more confident. So that was her. The other client, so I always tell my clients at the very beginning, be ready. There may be dramatic shifts or not. Like whether life stays the same, but you just have more fulfillment, or actually your life, your career dramatically changes. So for this architect, her career dramatically changed that she would have never have expected. So like working together, she was already like envisioning her quitting this job because like her manager was like kind of very like took advantage of her. She didn't like that the firm. So she knew that was going to happen. So it did. She did end up quitting her job. What she didn't realize would have happened was during our time working together, she visited her family back home, which she dreaded. But working together, she empowered herself to set boundaries, had better emotional regulation, also like went through a lot of childhood stuff that would trigger her when she dealt with her mom, her dad, her uncles. So she didn't get triggered anymore visiting back home. But what she didn't expect was like she had this family member, this uncle who was very successful, and he had this project, a hospital project. So her uncle always wanted to work with her, but like she couldn't deal with family. She had all these other things why she wouldn't want to. She wanted to live back home, all the stuff, right? So her visit back home, she actually really enjoyed it. And her uncle offered her this option to be the head architect for this hospital project. So she like kind of liked certain things about it, but certain things it didn't fit all her check boxes. So working together, I was kind of able to help her almost like negotiate with her uncle. So she was able to create this dream situation where for the 2 years, she will see the beginning of this project, and she gets to decide at that 2 year mark whether or not to continue or to hand it off to her uncle. So from this whole experience, she's even now, like her green card is still going to go through, but she's even now deciding like, actually, maybe I'll start an architect firm in my home country. And she never saw that as an option before. So
Oh my gosh. I hear two things loud and clear in these stories, and thanks for sharing these really powerful anecdotes. One is that inner child work or any kind of inner work is the act of giving yourself permission to be fully yourself. And within that, we have to first rediscover who we are because society does a really good job at beating that out of us, right? So the act of really learning, as you said in the beginning of our episodes, learning what your values are, learning what a need is, right? And then looking at what are my desires? And wait a minute, what if I could fully own these desires, right? So there's this sense of, can I give myself permission to be? The second thing I hear in this, and I think this is really important for listeners who run a business, because when we run a business, we're in a relationship with a lot of other people. The second thing I hear in your anecdotes is that as we change our relationship to ourselves, the outside world can't help but also begin to relate to us differently. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's all connected. Like the inner changes will reflect outer changes. And as you do the outer changes, that will also continue to reflect the inner growth and inner changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and why is that? Like, why is it that suddenly the world reacts differently to us? It's not like we've sat down the world and told the world to react differently to us. we are showing up differently. We've changed our relationship to ourselves. Why is it that suddenly, against all fears, our parents or colleagues are beginning to act differently around
Oh,
us?
such a good question. I think at the very, at the woke spiritual level, it's like, the universe reflects you. But there's that level, right? When you change, like you have a more positive outlook, more kind, maybe more accountable or whatever, right? More optimistic. The
Yeah.
world can reflect that change back to you. And also, right, like we do have a lot of influence in our world. So when we are in a different state of being, we influence the world. And I feel like we all even draw out those elements in other people. Like, for
Right.
example, right, it's like quite often people live very reactively. They smile at me, I'll smile back, right?
Mm,
We wait. Whereas, like, right, like imagine you live this state of like positivity, kindness, and it's just part of who you are to like notice people and just offer smiles because it makes you feel good when you're smiling. But you today, right? You went out in the world and you just smiled whenever you saw someone. Like you don't have to like, like hunt people's eye contacts and like look at them and smile. But like even just kind of more casually, naturally. Like when you're out and about, you just like somehow like make eyes with someone, smile. And I bet most chances are they'll reflect back to you like that smile back. So I really believe like when we take on this more empowered state, this influential state, we influence and also the world kind of mirrors back to us. And also, right, for us to make these changes, we take on, like, you can call it a bigger perspective, a more enlightened perspective. So we also have this new filter system. Because, right, like, there's so many bits of data here. It really depends on one's current state, one's current attitude, perspective, right? We take in that information.
mm,
Like, right? Like, if I was in a very negative state, I could easily, like, look right now, like, oh, it's kind of cloudy. Oh, it's too humid right now. There's no sunshine, right? Or I could be in a optimistic state and I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky to live in Thailand. I love the cloud formations. Oh my God, the tones. It's the same thing. It's the
mm.
same thing. Like the data is the same data, but how I filter it, how I choose to interpret that data, the meaning that I'm making, we have power over that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to shift sort of towards your business.
Oh,
And I want
okay.
to ask you, Kai, if you can sort of like look at yourself on a meta perspective and talk a little bit about how this inner work, as you've begun to engage in it for yourself, as you've learned how to guide other people through this work as a coach, how has this work positively affected you in growing your business? Or is there no connection at all between how you relate to yourself and how you grow a business?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, there's like, I would even want to say direct, not even indirect. There is a direct
Mm,
connection
um,
with the inner work and the outer work, the business work. Like back to that business coach that I had, he was like, Kai, like your personal growth, spiritual growth, personal development will always match your business growth, your wealth, your career. So you can't just grow one without the other. So he's like, why your business growth like grew so quickly was because you spent all these years developing yourself, reading self-help, meditating, right? You spent all these hours, all this money. That's why kind of very quickly, your client, whatever, right? Um, but with that being said, though, I've also recognized how my wounds, where I still need to heal, and for me, it is like the shame, the unworthiness. I know at the same time, as much as I've been growing in my business, why I'm still not where I want to be, where I need to be, where I should be, is because I still carry some unworthiness, fear, uh, unworthiness and fear. Because that's why even though, like, on paper, like, I had years, like 100K year and whatnot years, but in terms of like, to be completely transparent with you, like the bank account, the numbers, and like kind of like going in these feast and famine periods, that is a pattern that's been kind of consistently happening in my last 4 or 5 years. So I
mm,
still know that inner work, I am still healing, releasing, integrating. But at the same time, I know, like, as a miracle, once that, I don't know, whatever it is, the acceptance, the full, I don't know, whatever it is that still needs to be released, integrated to make sense. I know once that shifts, I almost know almost like overnight, like business.
Yeah.
Literally, I really believe almost like an overnight miracle. I completely believe that now. That overnight is just me, my stuff. I know overnight that overnight consistently getting 5 new clients, consistently hitting 30, like, 30, 50K. I know. But I know I'm already taking the steps there, but I believe it. I firmly believe it.
To let you finish talking, but I'm so excited. So I also want to interrupt, and then I don't want to interrupt because you're just dropping so much wisdom here. And I really, everyone listening, drop your dumbbells, pull over to the side, whatever you're doing while you're listening, rewind by 5 minutes and listen to these last 5 minutes again. This is so important what Kai just said, right? The more inner work we do, the more our business growth. There's a direct proportionality between the two, right? Much like you, right? The minute you figure something out on the soul level, suddenly the next day you have 5 new clients. I wholeheartedly believe in that. And for myself, years ago when I started my business, I also, much like you, had very quick business success in numbers. Like I remember my CPA calling me going like, "Oh my gosh, you had such a big month last month." And I was like, "Yeah, but somehow my bank account I don't know where the money went." Right? So that was a money story, right? I'm not worthy of money. I'm like I couldn't hold on to money. Couldn't hold on to money. But then after a while, literally in the same month, within 30 days, I had my first sit down coffee with my dad in 5 years. Hadn't seen him properly in 5 years and decided to call him and go, "I want to make up with you. Can we have coffee?" So we had coffee. And like within 30 days of that coffee, I signed my highest paying client and then proceeded to just have a lot of 5-figure months. And listen, like there is you and I can tell for you and just knowing a little bit of your backstory and how you relate to your business, you're someone who does a really beautiful job at really honing in on what's the strategy here? What do I have to do to scale this business? But then you also slow down and look at, I think that's my father wound talking. Let me take a look at, right? And this sort of beautiful balance, this back and forth between just masculine energy going all into the business strategy and then pulling back and looking at, am I relating to this in a positive way or in a harmful way is
Mm,
really beautiful it's beautiful to observe you do that.
mm,
That's the sweet spot between two extremes. The two extremes being spending years healing and healing and healing and telling yourself, I first have to heal completely before I can start this business. And the other extreme is trying to not look at the inner stuff at all and just going, all I need to do is figure out the best advertising strategy and I shall become a millionaire.
yeah.
And
Hustle, push.
and listen, you can build a business without ever looking at the soul line. Like, I'm under no illusions. You can do that. But are you going to be fulfilled by your business? Is your business going to be meaningful to you? Is your business going to help you advance a bigger purpose? Or is it just making you money? And
Yeah.
on the other hand, if you're continuously healing and waiting to build a business, or you're not perpetuating a negative cycle. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Thank you for kind of highlighting the both extremes. Like what comes to mind is like I think like yeah, business is also very relatable. Like with this what you described, the extremes with like romantic relationship, very similar kind of approach. Where it's
Say
like
more.
I gotta heal first. I gotta fix all my traumas first, and then I could like attract or be in a relationship. Or the other way, people just jumping in relationship to relationship without doing the inner work, and then just kind of getting lost, in those relationships. Kind of very similar thing with the business side too. Like, of course, like yes, you probably have to, there is some foundational, maybe like healing work before you jumping into business or whatever, or vice versa, or the other way, right? Like, yes, maybe like you're going to start a new business that initially maybe demands a lot of hours to do the business. And you might have less time or limited time to do the self-care or the personal work. But there should be this healthy balance and also like the mindset that the healing, the self-development that keeps going forward. It complements. It also happens as I'm putting myself in these challenging situations. If anything, I can only heal or like I can only heal so much on myself in a maybe self cocoon or protective space. and then I got to keep going. Like the ongoing healing that I can experience can only happen when I'm in business and I'm like dealing with clients and I'm negotiating and I'm trying to make sales. And when I'm in a relationship, we're having our fight, like the honeymoon period's fading, right? We're triggering each other, right? I'm scared that they're going to leave me. Oh my God, they just like threatened to break up, right? It has to keep going while you're in this, I guess, new future.
I love this so much, right? This sense of, and by the way, it's raining cats and dogs outside. I hope people can't hear this on the on the recording.
No, your sound filtering is too good.
Thank you to my mic. So, this sense of you actually can't heal everything inside a cocoon because you won't have all of the information, right? So from a business perspective, I find when clients wait to start making money, right? Like everything has to be perfect. They're sort of robbing themselves of a lot of information from a market perspective, right? Like what does the market respond to? But also a lot of information from a soul perspective. Like what are my triggers, right?
Mm,
So as a coach, my sense always is let's get you to the money fast because that's going to give us so many experimental points to look at where does your business want to go, but also where do we need to do some work on the soul line, right? If a
mm,
client gets triggered, oh my gosh, I used to get so triggered on sales conversations with male potential clients.
yeah.
It was just my father wound screaming in the back. But thank God I put myself in a position where I did get triggered, where I literally almost fainted
Yeah.
and then had the resource, my coach, to call and go, oh my fucking God, what just happened? Right? And this sense of, okay, I can heal so that I can grow my business. And as I grow my business, more information becomes available for me to heal again. It sort of becomes this little dance, right? And as you said, there's a beautiful parallel in relationships as well, right? Like we don't have the perspective to know of all of the places that want to be healed by ourselves. We need to have this outside perspective, whether that's our business, romantic partner, a coach, really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that perspective.
Yeah. So we're two digital nomads. And we have yet to talk about what it's like to heal and to build a business while traveling. So what is that like, Kai?
Yeah, I guess I'm still kind of figuring out, like, I would say I'm more kind of like living, like expatting in Chiang Mai with a little bit of traveling. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I'm kind of more stationary now in Chiang Mai, even though I did 2 months, in Vietnam. But yeah, it is a challenge. Also, like a lot of amazing opportunities, like where I get to also, I think like people living abroad, like already, right? They're like, I guess like breaking the mold. They might be adventurous. I think there's a lot of like correlations, like an entrepreneurial, I guess, mindset or energy, people that are traveling, living abroad. Because I think entrepreneur and I guess expats or nomads, I think the core they share, it's like the freedom, but also like breaking the status quo and the like this, yeah, breaking the mold of the stereotypical what it means to be successful in society. But it does come with challenges, as much as like business as well, friends as well. I do find it hard in terms of like romantically, like kind of meeting and finding a partner who also travels, live abroad. So there are challenges, but also a lot of opportunities. Because just a lifestyle for me, it's been amazing, like living here. Like, I think you said this, like, your dollar really stretches. Like, your dollar really stretches, but also it opens up money that you can invest back in your business or healing work. So, really, like, I'm so grateful that I have my business that gives me this lifestyle and I can really effectively use my money, like, in so many other ways. And living back home in Canada right now.
I think that last piece, and yes, we did have this conversation, I think over burritos a few weeks ago, right? The ways in which you're able to utilize your dollars that come in from your business when you live in a country where your dollar goes a longer way is just really quite remarkable. And I think it offers an acceleration to your business growth. And a lot of people don't think about that, right? A lot of people are like, yeah, like I guess I'm not making a lot of money, so I'm going to move to a cheaper country and just sort of hang out there. Well, what if you married the two things? What if you make a boatload of money, move to a cheaper country, and then have more liquidity to reinvest into your business to grow it even further? Because guess what? The more you grow your business, the more you grow your impact. And then from a freedom perspective, right? People listening to this podcast, they want to build a business to create more freedom. If you make little money, but you have location freedom, you don't really have freedom because you don't have the freedom to travel anywhere. You don't have the freedom to not work, and you don't have the freedom to impact more people because your business is set up in a smaller way. It's set up maybe in a way where you have to show up for one-on-one work in order to make money in the first place.
Yeah.
So the more you grow your business, aka the more you scale your business, the more freedom you give back to yourself while creating more impact, while serving a higher amount of people at a deeper level. So I'm going way off on a tangent here, but just this idea of like, what's the benefit, not just to your bank account, but what's the benefit to how you serve through your business of living in your country where living in a country where your dollar goes just a little further than it normally would, right? And the other side to this, of course, is traveling alone isn't going to help you build the life that you want to build, right? You still have to be intentional about what's the environment you have to create in order to build the business that truly is on purpose and meaningful to you. And that
Yeah.
might mean, to your point, to start traveling and moving around and going to all of the different countries and then realizing, oh, how about I'm going to be stationary for the next year and just get a visa, find rent for the next couple of years or so, in your case, Chiang Mai. And I think a lot of nomads are a little afraid to do that. You know, it's like, oh, no, no,
Yes.
no. But I told my parents, my friends, I'm going to be a nomad. I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be traveling and building my business at the same time. But if you really look behind like that facade, what we see online, the freedom entrepreneurs who really grow their business within a couple of years to sizable size are the ones who travel very slowly, are the ones who are stationary for about 80% of the year. Because guess what? You need a lot of mental capacity to travel. You need a lot of mental capacity to build a business. And at some point, you're going to have to prioritize. So why not slow mad? Why not settle for a couple of years in one of these gorgeous countries that many of us, thanks to our passport privilege, have access to?
Yeah, right. Settle. Yeah. Why don't you try settling in, Chiang Mai or settle in Da Nang? I'm sure it's it'd be good. Wouldn't be the worst settling you've ever done in your life.
Nope. Nope.
Oh, settle for this. Oh, darn it. Okay.
So for someone who is listening to this episode and goes, oh my gosh, I had no idea just how powerful this inner child work can be, why should they keep going, and where would they plug in with you to gain your support?
Yeah. So you can, I'm kind of going through like a social media challenge. So you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Hello Dr. Kai. Doctor is spelled like the full doctor, like not just a DR, if that makes sense. And I'm sure Dee and I will plug it in the show notes.
We'll put all the links in the show notes. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can just click on the links then.
Yeah. So you can give me a follow. I post videos on this topic. You can reach out to me. Have an amazing community. Have an awesome course to guide you through this work. And I also offer one-on-one client work. But if you want to explore like inner child healing yourself, like really, it's like, yes, there's like theory and concept. It's, it's a branch of psychology, but really it's like, it's about developing a relationship with yourself and recognizing the part inside of you that's like a younger you. To keep it simple, we usually say, it's one inner child, but really it's like there's quite a few of them. So usually it's like years of your life where it might have been most confusing and hard, or there's that little you that maybe had to go through a very maybe traumatic event. So sometimes when we kind of in present day, we react, we get scared, whether it's business or triggers in family or romantically, wherever. Usually it's not your adult self who's like capable, who has all these strategies that come out. Usually it's like a little Kai, a little Dina, scared, hurt, rageful, tantruming. So really it's an everyday thing. It's developing a connection with them. And it's like an everyday thing where it's like coming like the dad, the mom that you wish you had as a 4-year-old, as a teenager, and every day. you show up as that parent and you develop this inner dialogue, this inner trust, this inner relationship with them. And really this younger part, as much as like, they show up when you're triggered, but they're also your source of like wonder, awe. They can carry like core parts of your personality. They could be your source of unconditional love, excitement, so whatever, right? So they're also a part of you, and they're a source of why we love like children, right? So it's also we get to reclaim that part of you, but it's also not like for you to age regress and become this little adult child. Like you want to grow maturely to become that parent for yourself, but reclaim that childlike spark. Yeah.
Beautifully said. So I'll add, yes, you're currently locked out of your Instagram account. You might be back in your Instagram account by the time this episode airs. So whichever account is live for you by that time, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And I'll truly plug, like just this morning, I reshared one of your videos to my stories because it was just so powerful. And you talk so beautifully about how our relationship to ourselves, how our parents affects our life and what the frick to do about it. So for initial education and guidance, I truly encourage everyone to go ahead and not just follow you, but add your profile to your favorites. So that's always showing up on the top of your Instagram account. Like this is an Instagram account you want to follow for some love and kindness and guidance. Kai is just really beautiful. You're such an amazing teacher. And I imagine, being the phenomenal teacher that you are online, you're a phenomenal coach in your one-on-one settings. So, go and check out Kai and what he does and how he supports his clients and his community. Last question for you, Kai. I ask this question every single one of my clients. I say clients, my guests, and I think you know what's coming. What does freedom mean to you?
For me, freedom, it spans like all dimensions. Like for me, it's like emotional freedom where I'm freely able to express my feelings. I'm able to like allow people to freely express their feelings around me. It's like living freedom, like being able to live anywhere in the world. It's like, having that financial freedom that, I can support myself. I don't worry about money. If friends and family, need financial support, I can freely give them money. Like, I want to be at the place where like I could just like see someone, whether it's online or a stranger, and they're doing something maybe meaningful. I could be like, here, $1,000 on me. So for me, it's freedom in all dimensions where at the end of the day, it allows me to make the biggest impact and to bring out my core, which I want to, kindness, peace, inspiration and hope.
Freedom of expression, freedom of being yourself, and then growing and giving and sharing from that place of true self-love, true self-expression, through true authenticity. Kai, thank you so much for making time to bring your wisdom, bring your journey, bring your insights to this podcast. I'm truly thankful to you. I'm grateful that we have forged this gorgeous connection back here in Da Nang while you were visiting, that we get to just continue to grow this friendship and this connection over, whatever life has in store for us for the next few years. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Dina, I just want to say I'm also so grateful for you, and I highly encourage anyone listening, like reach out to Dina. Like she's the real deal. Like how she shows up here, how she shows up in like friendships, and also how she shows up in business is like this. Like she's aligned, she's the real deal, and she has such a big and caring heart. So please connect with her if you ever need support through this.
For anyone who's listening, if you're curious where you can plug in these days with me on topic with this podcast episode, you're welcome to plug into my self-paced course, Freedom Unleashed, which teaches you how to build the business and life you want by healing the parts of you that say you can't. I'll leave the link for that in the show notes. And as always, create more freedom today than you did yesterday. And I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the podcast, Your Business Untethered, hosted by me, Dina, creator of Way of the Founder. I love hearing from you, so please drop me a DM on Instagram sharing your insights from this episode. And if you are ready to take the leap, My free guides, Plot Your 9-to-5 Escape in 7 Days, and the Freedom Business Scorecard are in the show notes for you to grab. This episode created change for you? Please leave a review and be a friend and share this with a friend or colleague that you love. Until next time, please wake every day, seize the day, defy the norm, and create your very own type of freedom. I love you. I do mean it.